You think it's love. But deep down, something feels wrong. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're entangled in something darker, a psychological battlefield dressed as affection. Introduce the theme of invisible, suffering in relationships. Appeal to common experience. Have you ever stayed awake at night justifying someone's behavior, telling yourself they'll change? Immediate link to Carl Jung's theory of the shadow, anima, animus, and projection, suggesting that toxic relationships are not just emotional, but deeply psycho-spiritual entanglements. Present the video as a revelation, not just of signs, but of truths hidden in the unconscious, validated by Jung and modern psychology. The shadow in the mirror, why you chose them. You don't just fall for someone. You're drawn to a reflection of your repressed self, your shadow, Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Toxic relationships often begin with magnetic intensity, not love, but projection of unmet needs, trauma, guilt. Real-life example. A woman raised by a cold father falls for emotionally unavailable men. Explore how we confuse chemistry with destiny because the relationship feels familiar, not healthy. Introduce Jung's concept of the shadow as the hidden side we refuse to acknowledge, and how it picks our partners for us. Possession. When love becomes control. The toxic partner doesn't love you, they possess you. And worse, you let them. Jung. People don't have ideas, ideas have people. Toxic dynamics take hold like possession. Explore the power imbalance, emotional manipulation, gaslighting, and dependency. Real-life example. A partner isolates you out of love, slowly erasing your identity. Link to Jung's concept of inflation, where one person projects their God complex or unhealed wounds onto the other. Highlight how the fear of abandonment often keeps the victim willingly chained. The anima and animus war. Love or projection. You're not loving a real person. You're loving a fantasy your psyche built. Jung. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Toxic relationships often stem from unconscious projections of the anima in men or animus in women, the internalized ideal partner. Real-life example. A man idolizes his partner, then grows cold when she doesn't live up to his inner fantasy. Explore how disappointment breeds toxicity when the projection collapses. Discuss the confusion between infatuation and intimacy, and how inner wounds become outer conflict. Why you stay in pain. You keep choosing pain not because you like it, but because you recognize it. Jung didn't use repetition compulsion, but the idea aligns with his notion of the individuation process being blocked. You recreate your childhood wounds in adult relationships, hoping unconsciously to fix what broke you. Real-life example. A man raised by a narcissistic mother continually falls for controlling women. Jung. We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become. But first, we must see the pattern. Explain how this is not masochism. It's a failed healing attempt. The modern psychology of toxic bonds. Everything Jung foresaw now has scientific backing, from attachment theory to trauma bonding. Validate previous chapters using attachment styles, insecure attachment, anxious, avoidant dynamics, trauma, bonding, intermittent reinforcement, dopamine highs, neuropsychology, amygdala hijack, cortisol overload. Show that Jung's concepts were precursors to modern discoveries. Quote Jung again, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you can't do that in a toxic relationship. Offer a hopeful ending. Liberation through awareness, therapy, and individuation. There are moments, subtle, almost invisible, when your soul flinches, but your lips still smile. A text that makes you uneasy, but you tell yourself, they're just tired. An apology that feels hollow, but you whisper, "At least they said sorry." The silence after a fight. Not peaceful, but suffocating. And yet you call it love, because it's all you've known. Most people don't realize they're in a toxic relationship until something inside them goes numb. And by then, it's not screaming, it's whispering. And that's the most dangerous kind of pain, the one you've grown accustomed to. Carl Jung didn't talk about toxic relationships the way modern psychology does. He spoke of possession, projection, and the unconscious forces pulling the strings of our lives, like ghosts wearing the masks of lovers. According to Jung, love can become a battleground not because of the other person, but because of the parts of yourself you never dared to meet. The person you fell for might not be real. You might be clinging to a symbol, a shadow, a memory wearing human skin. How many people stay in poisonous intimacy because the pain feels familiar, almost comforting? How many call it passion when it's just chaos? How many confuse control with care? You've probably seen it. A friend who disappears slowly under the thumb of a possessive partner. A mother who tells her daughter, "At least he doesn't hit you," because she's forgotten what real love even looks like. A man who stays in a relationship where he's belittled constantly, too ashamed to admit he's dying inside. And then, the worst deception of all, you telling yourself it's okay. This video is not here to list signs in a sterile, forgettable way. This is about dissecting the architecture of emotional poison through the lens of Carl Jung, a man who believed that every broken relationship starts with a lie we tell ourselves about who we are. Because to see the toxicity outside, we first have to confront the shadows within. No one falls in love with a stranger. We fall in love with something hauntingly familiar. A rhythm, a wound, a silence we've heard before. It's not random. You didn't choose that person by chance. You chose them. Or rather, the deepest, most wounded part of you did. The you, part you've ignored for years. The part that now screams through what you call love. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the hidden side of your psyche, repressed desires, shame, weakness, resentment, rage. Not evil by nature, but dangerous in suppression. And the shadow doesn't stay buried. It emerges, dressed as attraction. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. Carl Jung let that sink in. The people we love most, intensely, often carry the pieces of ourselves we hate to admit exist. This is not romance. This is unconscious recognition. Take the woman who repeatedly dates aggressive, emotionally unavailable men. People say she has bad taste. No. What she has is a compulsion to resolve a story she never finished. Perhaps a father who never hugged her, who taught her that silence is love. So she chases that silence now, thinking if she can make him love her, the past will somehow repair itself. Take the man who becomes infatuated with women who manipulate him. Not because he likes suffering, but because control feels like home. Perhaps he was raised by a mother who confused affection with dominance. So now, his adult relationships feel like a looped attempt to escape a prison he's unconsciously rebuilt for himself. This is the shadow at work. Jung said, "We do not see things as they are, we see them as we are." That's not poetry, that's a psychological diagnosis. Every time you say, "I don't know why I'm so drawn to this person," what you're really saying is, "There's something unresolved inside me that sees itself in them." This doesn't mean it's your fault, it means your psyche is trying to wake you up. But most people don't listen, they rationalize it. It's chemistry. They're just misunderstood. We have a connection I can't explain. The connection is explainable. You're not in love, you're in projection. Jung's view of projection wasn't surface level. He believed projection was the root of nearly all relationship dysfunctions. That when we fall in love, we often aren't loving a person, we're loving a psychic image shaped by our unconscious needs. Projection means the expulsion of a subjective content into an object. It is the opposite of introjection. Jung, psychological types, in other words. The relationship might not even be real. It may be a one-sided play, a stage where your shadow dances in disguise. And worse, the more you deny your shadow, the more power it has. People often think toxic relationships are about bad luck, but toxicity is rarely just an external force. It's a mirror, reflecting back everything you've buried. This is why healing doesn't start with finding someone better. Healing starts with finding the part of you that's settled for less. Because here's the secret. You don't attract what you deserve, you attract what you believe you deserve. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, because once you do, you can no longer lie about why you've allowed certain people into your life. This chapter isn't here to shame you, it's here to awaken you. Toxic love isn't mysterious, it's mathematical. A sum of wounds, memories, unmet needs, and unconscious cravings, masquerading as fate. The cure begins the moment you ask not, why did they treat me this way? But why did I feel like I belonged there?